The morning air was thick with the scent of damp earth and freshly cut grass, a reminder of the garden Emily had been neglecting. She stood on the back porch, her fingers curled around a chipped coffee mug, watching the unruly hedges sway lazily in the breeze. Daniel had promised to take care of them weeks ago, but, as always, work had come first. She exhaled sharply, setting her mug down with a clink. Her marriage was comfortable, steady, but steady had begun to feel stagnant. Daniel had become more of a fixture than a presence in the house, coming and going in predictable rhythms. His attention always divided between business calls and emails. The man she had married, the one who once traced idle patterns on her bare shoulders in the morning light, was now a ghost of routine. Her phone buzzed against the wooden railing, shaking her from her thoughts. Message from Marcus. "Hey, need any help with that jungle of a garden?" She smiled despite herself. Marcus Johnson, Daniel's best friend, had always been a source of easy conversation and laughter. He was the opposite of Daniel, relaxed, effortlessly charming, with a quick wit that made even the most mundane topics amusing. Where Daniel was methodical and controlled, Marcus was spontaneous, his energy infectious. Emily hesitated for a moment before replying. "Actually, I could use a hand. When are you free?" The response was immediate. "Give me 20 minutes. She should have said no. But the words had already been sent, and the anticipation that stirred in her stomach was something she hadn't felt in years. By the time Marcus arrived, the sun had climbed high enough to warm the air, casting golden light over the backyard. He leaned against the gate, grinning as he took in the overgrown hedges. "Damn, Em, you weren't kidding. This is a full-on wilderness," he teased, tossing his sunglasses onto the patio table. "Lucky for you, I'm a professional hedge tamer." She laughed, rolling her eyes as she handed him a pair of garden shears. "I'll believe that when I see it." As they worked side by side, an easy rhythm settled between them. The sound of clippers cutting through dense branches filled the air, punctuated by Marcus's playful remarks. He worked with his sleeves rolled up, the sun catching on the sheen of sweat at his collarbone. Emily found her gaze lingering on him longer than she should have, watching the way his muscles flexed as he reached for a higher branch. "You okay?" he asked, catching her off guard. She blinked, heat rushing to her cheeks. "Yeah. Just lost in thought." "Anything interesting?" His voice was warm, teasing, but there was something else there too, something heavier. She hesitated, just thinking about how different things used to be. Before work took over everything. Marcus nodded, his expression unreadable. "Daniel's always been like that. Focused, ambitious." "I know," she admitted. "I just miss him. I miss feeling like we're on the same page." There was a pause, a quiet space between them where words seemed unnecessary. Then Marcus reached for a stray leaf in her hair, brushing it away with careful fingers. The touch was brief, but it left a lingering heat in its wake. "He's a lucky guy," Marcus murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily's breath hitched, but before she could respond, the wind shifted, rustling the branches around them, breaking the moment apart. She turned away quickly, gripping the shears with unnecessary force. "We should finish up before the sun gets too hot," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Yeah," Marcus agreed, though his gaze lingered on her a second longer than necessary. The afternoon stretched on, the tension between them simmering just beneath the surface, unspoken yet undeniable. Emily knew she was playing with fire, but for the first time in a long while, she felt something other than invisible. And that, she thought, might be worth the risk. The sun hung lower in the sky by the time the last hedge was trimmed, leaving only a faint golden glow over the garden. Emily wiped the sweat from her forehead, glancing at Marcus as he stepped back to admire their work. He exhaled, grinning. Not bad for a couple of amateurs. She laughed, but her heart beat unevenly. Being near him had stirred something restless inside her, something she wasn't ready to name. "Come inside for a drink." The words were out before she could think better of them. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." Inside, the air was cooler, the kitchen dimly lit against the afternoon light. Emily poured 2 glasses of lemonade, handing one to Marcus before leaning against the counter. He took a sip, watching her in a way that made her stomach tighten. "You and Daniel still good?" he asked, voice softer now. She looked down at her glass. "We're stable." Marcus tilted his head. "That's not the same as happy." A brittle smile touched her lips. "No, it's not." The silence stretched between them, thick with words left unsaid. Then Marcus set his glass down, stepping closer. "You deserve more, Em. You know that, right?" Her pulse stammered as she met his gaze. She should step back, should laugh it off, should remind him that Daniel was his best friend. But she didn't. She held her breath as Marcus reached out, his fingertips brushing lightly against hers. A shiver ran through her. "Marcus." Her voice barely made it past her lips before he closed the distance. His hand came up, cupping her cheek, and then his lips were on hers, soft, searching, waiting for permission she knew she was about to give. When she kissed him back, it wasn't hesitation she felt. It was relief. The kiss lingered, deepening with unspoken longing, until reality clawed its way back. Emily pulled away first, her breath uneven, her fingers trembling as she touched her lips. Marcus watched her, his own breathing heavy, his eyes dark with something unreadable. "We shouldn't have," she began, but the words felt like a lie. "Do you regret it?" Marcus asked, his voice rough. Emily hesitated. She should say yes. But as she met his gaze, the truth settled between them, undeniable and dangerous. Car door slammed outside. Her heart stopped. Daniel was home. The silence between them was deafening. Marcus stepped back, his expression unreadable now, but the heat of his touch still lingered on her skin. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears as she straightened her shirt, swallowing the panic that rose in her throat. Footsteps approached the front door. Key jangled in the lock. "Emily!" Daniel's voice carried through the house. She forced a breath, smoothing her hair as Marcus turned away, quickly grabbing his glass of lemonade. The door swung open, and Daniel stepped in, his gaze sweeping over the two of them. His brow furrowed slightly at the sight of Marcus, but he offered a nod in greeting. "Hey man," Daniel said, setting his briefcase by the door. "Didn't expect to see you here." Marcus shrugged, his easy grin slipping back into place. "Emily needed a hand with the jungle out back. Figured I'd lend my expert gardening skills." Daniel chuckled, oblivious to the tension still thick in the air. "Yeah, I've been meaning to get to that. Thanks for helping out." Emily's fingers curled tightly around her glass. She felt Marcus's presence beside her like a live wire, the room suddenly too small, too full of unspoken truths. "You okay?" Daniel asked, stepping closer to her. His eyes searched hers, and for the first time in a long time she felt exposed. She forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired. It was a long day." Daniel pressed a quick kiss to her forehead, oblivious to the way her body stiffened at the contact. The weight of guilt pressed against her chest, yet beneath it, something else simmered, something reckless and unresolved. "Well, I'm starving," Daniel said, heading toward the kitchen. "You guys eat yet?" "No," Marcus answered before Emily could. "But I should get going. Long day and all." Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Emily to see the conflict mirrored in his gaze. Then he turned away, clapping Daniel on the shoulder as he made his way to the door. "See you soon, man," Daniel called after him. Marcus hesitated at the threshold. Emily barely breathed as he cast one last glance over his shoulder, something unspoken lingering between them. Then he was gone. The door clicked shut, and the air felt heavier. Emily turned to Daniel, watching as he moved around the kitchen, oblivious to the hurricane raging inside her. She had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The real question was, did she even want to?